The breath is so deeply meaningful in every stage of life, from the moment that we are born until.
Welcome to Meaningful Conversations with Singinlisa. If you've ever spent time talking with someone who left you feeling inspired, motivated, empowered, and impacted for your destiny, then you're in the right place. So if this is your first time visiting us, thank you for being here, and we hope you come back again. Now, what I want to do is get into a meaningful conversation with this beautiful lady here. Her name is Kate Becker. And Kate, welcome, and thank you so much for being with me this evening.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to be here.
Oh, yeah. And, as we kind of talked previously, just thinking about the year 2020, it's been a year that's going to be long remembered for all of the challenges it brought, the struggles, the hard times. There was loss of life and friends and loved ones, but it really also brought about some innovative thinking, some new ways of surviving and getting through what seemed to be unbelievable times. And I know that everybody has a story about how they survived and what they had to do to make those changes. And one of the things that Kate is special in is breathing. And maybe in 2020, we probably forgot how to breathe. And so guess what, everybody? Kate is going to help us learn how to breathe.
We are all holding our breath, for sure.
Absolutely. Kate is a level 4 therapeutic breath worker trained in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and through Transformations Incorporated. And she has a 5-year mentorship with the famous Jack Fontana. And her website, theradiantshadow.com, is a place where you're going to be able to get a lot of information and connect with her. But Kate teaches Kundalini yoga. I hope I'm saying that right. And ecstatic dance and improvisational voice meditation. And her background also includes ecstatic dance and voice practices along with movement meditation. Is it Butoh or Butoh?
Butoh, yeah.
Butoh, okay. And authentic content creating for performance and ceremony. And I'm excited because she lives right here in New Orleans, Louisiana, right where I am. So let me first kind of reverse and go back to what happened to you in the year 2020, because the type of work you do, I'm pretty sure, is hands-on and face-to-face.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did not even consider, it wasn't just that I didn't operate online. It's that I really actively didn't want to. I didn't think that I could have the kind of effect or experience that I wanted to have in that format. That's what I believed. But going back to something that you said about people holding their breath throughout 2020 is absolutely true. We're holding our breath right now. 90% of the people listening to this are holding their breath in some way right now. And it's to hold our breath, or to regulate what we're taking in. It's our primary, or I might say our only, true emotional response mechanism, or our emotional regulation mechanism. So we hold our breath, or we limit our breathing when things get rough. And that's kind of how we're trained to breathe. And without a lot of awareness around it, we could wind up breathing less rather than more. In situations where things are going on that are rough, what we really need is to be breathing more to fully process it, to be more fully present instead of avoidant. And we get really avoidant in our culture. We're into distraction and avoidance. And if something is uncomfortable, it means it's wrong. We just kind of, this is a broad statement, I apologize, but we are not great at being uncomfortable culturally. There's not a lot of ways in which we talk about, something's going on that feels like it's not going to feel great. And so we hold our breath, we don't process it, and that's problematic. And so it's not just that, every now and again, this or that person is holding their breath. It's a deep, wide cultural thing where we are limited in the amount of processing and being present that we're doing because we're holding.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think it makes me sort of connect what you said to how we're wired to have this fight or flight response to when our bodies or when we feel threatened or when we feel like we have to be prepared to either protect ourselves or, run for cover. And so we don't think about breathing because it's such an involuntary action, if I'm saying that correct. I think we just do it automatically. So we've never had to consider, well, how do you actually breathe and what should I be thinking about or considering, when I breathe? Is there a right way or a better way that we should all be really focusing and kind of getting in tune with our breathing?
It's a great question. It's a huge question. Depends on what we're trying to achieve. We can modulate our breath to have certain physiological, biochemical effects in the body and emotional effects in the body. We can slow down our breathing. We can speed our breathing up. And it's not problematic that our nervous system kicks us into fight or flight. When it starts to be an issue is that when we are in fight or flight or survival mode, that's physically, mentally, and emotionally, more time than we need to be. And some folks are in some version of or degree of survival mode all the time, which is a really tense and challenging position to be in. So we can monitor whether or not our nervous system is in the sympathetic response, that fight or flight, or the parasympathetic response, simply by the pace and the depth of our breath. We can. It's so simple, Lisa. It's so simple that people don't believe it. Mm-hmm. And in a real, in an ongoing, consistent, and sincere practice of working with your breath, it's astonishing what we can achieve. So, first thing we'll talk about is slowing down the breath. There's a mindfulness component where you're watching the breath, but also you're just breathing nice and smooth, nice and deep. So you can focus, if this is helpful, because I know adding new habits or becoming aware of new things sometimes just falls off the radar and we're all very busy. But this can be helpful to focus on the pleasure of the breath. So you can slow the breath down. And again, this is to get out of that survival mode into that rest and digest. Nice and smooth inhale. Feeling the well of the body expand. And exhale without force. Breathing nice and deep, nice and slow. This breath, not only is it calming to our body, but also we can work with the mind and kind of come down off of an immediate response that we might have. We can check ourselves in situations where we might do something that isn't really helpful to the situation because our system's been amped up so much. So when we slow the breathing down, there is counting breath, there is all kinds of ways and there's all these schools of breath. So people that identify what's happening and how to do it. I'm not going to say any of that. I'm going to say we know our body, we can slow our breathing down in a nice, practical, meaningful, and intimate way. Mm-hmm. So that we let ourselves take an actual give this a real actual and sincere shot. That matters. It matters that we have some willingness or openness in the mind when we try this, because that's when the mind is most receptive to change. That's the neuroplasticity thing going on. If we want to create some new pathways in the brain, we want the brain to be receptive to change. Because we're rerouting some of our anxiousness and some of our problematic thought loops and whatever, it's meaningful that we take this seriously. We let our mind be open. We open ourselves to an experience that it has a little more power to it than we realize. And we slow down the breath. You can do this for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 20 minutes. The degree of your sincerity as you breathe is going to do more for your effect than, if I did it for 6 hours or what. It's that you connect intimately. Mm-hmm. That you have a sense where you're coming into the self and connecting with how you are, what's going on with you, what's happening on a deeper emotional level. We get up here on the surface so much of the time that somebody might ask, oh, hey, how you doing? And if we really thought about it, we don't know. So coming back down into our emotional experience so that we can become aware of how we really are, that we can care about how we really feel and not just go in there how we feel, judge it, make it wrong, or that's the inner critic. But it's also, unfortunately, a way in which most of us relate to ourselves is in a confrontation where we either ignore ourselves or we're judging ourselves or we have this going on. What a life-changing mental shift to make, to go in and say, hey, I go in to feel how you feel with kindness, with care, with a sense of love and compassion for yourself. It sounds, I don't know how it sounds. It sounds too easy. It sounds floofy. However it sounds, it's actually life-changing. It's a life-changing practice to know the self in that way. So we're talking about slowing down the breath.
Okay.
Now, it's exciting, Lisa. We can talk about.
Well, let me ask you, when we were talking, because that's one question that I did have. So the idea for everyone to understand is that we tend to breathe sort of pretty quickly. And is it that when we're breathing more slowly, we're in more control? And is that a deeper breath that actually reaches more parts of our bodies, which sort of balances things out because we're not in such a hurry, or we're not sort of frantic and not really focused?
You said a couple things that are key. So our breathing affects every other system in our body.
Yeah.
So there's a lot we can talk about, specifically what's going on in the physical body from a scientific perspective. And there's a lot to learn about that. If people are interested, they can seek that out. But we are harmonizing the systems in the body. When we breathe shallow, you can imagine, again, very directly, well, the breath isn't going very far. It's not able to touch and move and link and sync and do what it's supposed to be doing. I think of it as a thriving ecosystem in the body, where the gut and the root and the solar plexus and the lungs and the heart, everything is connected. And there's some energy moving in the body because the breath is deeper, the breath is more full. So when we breathe shallow, we get stagnation in the body, which affects our health in many different ways. In fact, stagnation is linked to disease in a lot of different ways, many, many different ways. So breathing deeper directly affects the systems in the body as they are and as they live physically in the body. And I love that you use the word harmonizing, because that's what we do. We relieve pressure, we reduce stagnation, we help our organs and our circulation and our eliminative systems and our digestive system, as well as, if you want to go there, which I do, keeping our emotions moving so that we're not bottling up, storing them, exploding later, living in a way that we feel really numb until one day we break open because the crisis of our emotions have become too strong, or we'll keep the emotions moving. We might cry one moment like a child, be giggling the next moment because we've let it really fully move through us. And kids are a great example of letting their emotions be full, be what they are, and keep moving. And we as adults we don't have to act like children who are having emotions. We can we can know a little bit more about what to do with that. But yeah, to keep our emotions moving as well.
Well, you hit on a key word. I know all of 2020 was emotional because, my goodness, so much happened that was shocking and unexpected. And I'm pretty sure that the idea for everybody was to try to maintain some type of control. Everything seemed to be chaotic. And so did you find that you had to learn, even though you know about breathing, more techniques or better ways to achieve what you are familiar with, that will bring you balance in your life?
Well, I tell you what, I had to take what I do to the next level in terms of my own use and belief in this work. It deepened my reliance on the breath. It deepened my conviction of the breath, and not from, I have to prove that breath is, this extraordinary valuable. I reached for it and it was there. So I had to deepen my own practice, and I had to learn how to make the practice that was helping me so much available to my breathwork community, who I knew, just like I was isolated in their life, surrounded by uncertainty, terrified not only of the void when things stop, like who am I, all that kind of existential stuff, but financial concerns, health concerns, everything else comes from feeling isolated and maybe anxious or depressed, or but concern for people that we love, separated from people that we love. So we're surrounded by the most intense circumstance collectively that we've ever been in, and I couldn't connect, gather. I couldn't say, this is how we make things meaningful, even hard things deeply meaningful, and I couldn't do it. So for a period of time, I felt really powerless, and then I got right over the hump of not believing that I could practice online, and it looks different than I've designed at any other time.
Yeah.
But we got on the horse, a number of us, there was about 10 of us who got online and connected our breath and did a meditation. When I say connected our breath, I'm talking about the faster than normal breathing, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Okay.
And we did it for 100 days in a row for an hour.
Wow.
I discovered that when the heart is there and the practice is there and the group is showing up with their vulnerability and sincerity, we're not limited in the ways that we think that we are. Our community now is thriving. There's just a lot that's gone on in that. And for myself and some others among our breathwork community, it was the lifeline. It's what made the difference. I mean, connection alone, but then we're also working with the breath, and we're also able to talk about the uncertainty and reframe the uncertainty so that we don't have to only travel down judgment and control pathway road, and we can resurrect a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of discovery, some kind of how do we mine this for some depth and use it for purposes that are empowering to the human spirit, us in our own lives because we need it, and how do we make it available so that there's more of this going on.
I love it. I tell you, well, everybody, let's just take a breath right now, because this is a lot to take in and unpack. And whew. And it just appreciate being able to breathe, because I tell you, it is so amazing what we don't think about that we do every moment of the day, and that supplies us with the energy that we need, all that we need to function and move and exist, even in hard times, to still exist, to find out how to come out better. And hopefully Kate is going to show us some techniques in a little bit. So everybody stick with us, because we're going to continue talking about all of the wonderful ways that you never considered how to breathe.
The Akula Foundation, founded in 1994 by Dr. Shiva Akula, is the nonprofit foundation of Canon Hospice Foundation. Originally dedicated to providing hospice care to the indigent community, the vision and mission of the Akula Foundation envisions recovery from grief and loss through innovative programs for the community, providing compassion, professional support, continuing education, remembrance therapy, chronic illness, and palliative care services. Individuals in Louisiana and Mississippi, as well as patients and families of Canon Hospice, also benefit from these services and more. More information about other programs providing great benefits, such as Camp Swan, a children's bereavement camp offering 3 yearly gatherings, grief support, continuing education, and advanced illness management programs, can be found at www.akulafoundation.com. Akula Foundation can also be found on Facebook at Akula Foundation and contacted at 504-818-2723. The Akula Foundation relies on donations from the community. Consider Akula Foundation in your next tax-deductible donation, online or by mail. The Akula Foundation is available for you.
So, Kate, when we talk about breathing, you mentioned some other factors that happen throughout the year. And you and I talked before about the mental state that people struggled with, which was really high on the list of the challenges that people had to face because of all of the traumatic events that just sort of unfolded, second after second after second. And so we even talked about the tennis player at the time who I told you took a mental break because she simply said, I'm under too much stress to take these interviews that you guys pressure me with all these questions that make no sense, and sometimes they do, but it's too much anxiety for me to do what I love to do, which is play tennis. And I was sharing with you how it rocked the tennis world because she's a top level player, and for her to say, I'm not answering questions, it caught them off guard. And so that is still an ongoing issue today because she has not only not been in that initial event that she withdrew from, but the next tournament happened and she's also not present there. But what do you think about that when somebody's faced with that type of pressure? We've had people in the hospital. We've had, all of our healthcare professionals. I mean, my God, the mothers who had to figure out how to take care of the families and vice versa, the fathers, all of that, just with the limitations and the restrictions and am I going to infect somebody? How can I be safe? I mean, where in the world do you start when it comes to leveling off, your life and figuring out how to survive?
Well, I mean, the example of the tennis player, yes, we need leaders who are taking their needs and their mental health seriously and advocating for themselves, even if it's deeply, and sometimes especially if it's deeply inconvenient. Truth is, we live in a society and a culture that is not always very healthy, and it pressures this and it ignores that. And so we need to advocate for some rest, for what's healthy for us. We need to first know what's healthy for us and what's going on with us, and then sort of gain chops to be able to advocate for ourselves. And we need people like that who are visible, who have kind of a high stakes role in whatever their field is, to say, no, I'm not doing that, even though it's inconvenient, even though it excludes me from this or that thing that, is valuable in that world, so that people can say, there's this is happening, and give themselves a little bit deeper permission to self-care. It kind of goes back to a relationship with ourself. We talked about a little bit of an internal bully, learning how to care for ourselves, our health, dispelling a little bit of the martyrship myth. And you mentioned mothers. There is this very, very classic, very strong myth around martyrship and sainthood, where if we give and give and give and give, that's our kind of ticket to sainthood. That's where we get our value from. And if anything left for ourselves, well, then that's selfish, or that's to be shamed or sort of guilted. It's unsustainable. It doesn't work. It's not helping anyone. And it's a value system that must change. So we need to see people that are visible in our communities saying, when I care for myself, I am caring for my community. There's not a difference, and there's not a separation.
Yeah, absolutely. That speaks to being empty and not being able to give. So you have to first be filled with something that others can benefit from, so you can give back and help someone else after you yourself have been helped. And so are there specific ways that we should look at breathing? Like, are there 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, or just how do you identify what we should know when we're approaching and now we want to learn how to better take care of our breathing?
As I've said, I like to keep things really simple, develop some intimacy with your breath, and breathe more smoothly, more deeply. Usually when we're using breath as a tool, it's to calm down. We can also use breath as a tool to energize ourselves. And so that's breathing more quickly, breathing more slowly, breathing more quickly. It's pretty intuitive. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about 2 different sides of breath work really quick, so that we kind of know what we're talking about. That slower than normal breathing, where we're calming the self down and we're getting swinging the function of our nervous system back over into that rest and digest state. We're bringing ourselves into more calmness. Very, very powerful and beautiful practice. There's also what we use in trauma recovery, which is a faster than normal breath. It's the kind of breath we're talking about when you hear therapeutic breath work, holotropic breath work, conscious connected breathing breath work. It's faster than normal. And this breath pattern, not only does it change what's going on in our brain, resulting in an altered state of consciousness, but it's activating repression that lives in the body. So this is drawing on a canon of work that is Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk, talking about how trauma lives in the body. So we need to resolve our baggage. We're walking around with beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world that we usually formed or garnered early in life, and they're limiting us now. They're not true, and they're also not conscious. So, I don't get to this, I don't get to that. The world is this kind of place. So these heavy duty limitations that are unconscious. So in short, if I can manage to do that, we speed up the breath, we stimulate unresolved energy patterns that are living in the body. We let them come up, and the body physically responds with sensation, and there's an emotional component to it, and it looks like sort of a catalyst experience. So that kind of breath work where we're looking to have a limiting or a core wound, call them core wounds, usually happen early in life. They're unresolved, and they operate, I think of it, they operate under the level of our consciousness, like a program running in the background of a computer, and they zap us. So to have resolve can then liberate us from those unconscious and quite controlling beliefs. We know that we have them because a lot of times we want to do better, we want to make change, we want to feel whole and thriving, and we just can't manage to. It's because a lot of that stuff is unconscious. So we activate the breath, we let the energy and experiences we're carting around with us from the past come and resolve. That's the faster than normal breathing. Now you can get into pranayama, which is breath of fire, and all these other kinds of styles of breathing. But again, I just want to keep that really simple.
You said breath of fire?
Breath of fire. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like that's going to achieve something.
Yeah. It gets some energy to the body for sure. I know it's a lot of information.
Well,
thank you for letting me be.
Absolutely. And I definitely want you to demonstrate maybe two of the examples that you're talking about just in their simplicity, just to let people see exactly what may go on in that process, because you spoke about the quicker breathing, which I think I need because I definitely want more energy. And so, but then you have, does that lend itself to people who hyperventilate? Would that be a connection?
So there's a difference between hyperventilating and hypoventilating, and we can look at what's going on with our exhale. Hyperventilating is not really going to hurt you so much in this process, but it's not the goal. So we emphasize the inhale, we let the exhale relax and release without pushing. When we're pushing that exhale, we can get into some hyperventilation territory, which again, and as the breath worker, I just gently coach people out of that if that's happening. Yeah, but we don't want to hyperventilate. It's I tend to like to use tools that are you can teach kindergartners to. So before I have somebody sit down to breathe, we'll do a minute of jumping jacks. Which, if you haven't done jumping jacks in a while, it's pretty intense exercise. So get the body moving, the heart rate up just a little bit, and then sit down to breathe. This is, if I were going to engineer a little practice for folks, I would say do a minute of jumping jacks and be breathing in and out through your mouth. So you're getting a little bit more air than you actually need.
Okay.
Do about a minute of jumping jacks, which again, it's kind of a long time if you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, this is about.
Here we go. We're breathing. And then sit down nice and comfortable and connect your breath for 3 minutes. And when I say connect your breath, I'm going to give a little example. I mean a breath in and out through the mouth without pause. And it looks like this.
Okay.
So the first thing that you're going to get to the other side of, hopefully, is the dry throat. Connecting that breath for 3 minutes, and then on your last, as those 3 minutes end, we all have nice little timers on our phones.
Yeah.
And we inhale, hold the breath, and relax the body. And exhale when you're ready. And then let your breath slow. Nice, smooth, long inhale. Nice, smooth, long, and unforced exhale. That's another 3 minutes. So this is, and depending on what people need, I create a different little system of shorter breathing practices. But this is, if people at home want to try it and really give it your best shot, really a wholehearted attempt at that jumping jacks, 3 minutes of that connected breath, 3 minutes of the long, slow, deep breathing, and then just feel the energy in your body. And I promise you will feel something.
Yeah, I am.
Just 6
I think
minutes.
it makes a difference, and it doesn't take long either to achieve some level of success or accomplishment.
So we breathe for an hour. We do that in private sessions. We do that in a group, which is really great. But what really interests me is, what are people actually going to do? The thing that takes less time, that that they remember to do. The thing that's, oh yeah, we remember the jumping jack. Like, just making things. The thing that's most helpful, which ultimately is my goal as a practitioner, as a teacher and a breath worker, is to help out. That's boiled down. My job is to care. My job is to help out. And so what's most helpful is what people will actually do. So I like to keep it,
yeah,
at least for introductory purposes. Yeah.
I love it.
Some way.
Well, I am going to be breathing more intentionally, and I'm just excited about the time that you have given us to teach us about paying more attention to our breath and our breathing and how we can help ourselves more. And I definitely don't want to end without thanking Dr. Akula. You and I know him through the Akula Foundation, and he had sponsored this opportunity for us to share this information. And so you've helped many of everyone at the foundation to have our times together, breathing and learning and just becoming more peaceful and just understanding of ourselves. And I think really being forgiving of ourselves and patient with ourselves as we continue to discover the best part of who we are is really important. And so I just want to say, Kate, thank you so much for your journey, for being who you are. And we know that your future is going to be bright because we all need to breathe. And so I think you're going to have work from here on out.
Yes.
Able to,
there's enough to do, for sure.
Right. So how do you see your future now that you've been through this pandemic and you're into this new area and a phase of life right now? What do you foresee as your future with breathing and how you've grown even through this?
So this is where I take some deep breaths, because I do have a big vision, and I have some plans. It is, so organizing breath workers is something that is important to me, that we can, as a field, operate as, like I said, a thriving ecosystem, rather than a competitive, more capitalistic style of proprietorship where we're just running our businesses and we're kind of, trying to hustle out a living. It's important for me that there be an active community component to breath workers, that we can kind of create a little bit of the climate around the field of breath work, at least here in the southern United States. So I'm working on Southern United States Breathwork Alliance, which could help our field be healthier, help all of us thrive, so that we are supported and live in a family of breath workers.
Wow.
That goes along with the breathwork trainings that are putting more breath workers in the process of their own healing and enabling them, empowering them to hold space in this process for others, getting breath workers, in every neighborhood, or whatever. But the idea is that there's more breath work going on in a way that the standards for trainings and ethics and all of that really are observed, because breath work is a field that's a little bit a wild west. There are standards for certified breath workers, and those can be remembered and followed and honored, so that people are getting trauma informed, and that they are really well-rounded in their education on breathwork before hanging up a shingle. Groups are coming back, and that's everything I could say, just to kind of reel it in a little bit, has to do with community. So when I think of the things that are most valuable to cultivate in my own community, and any way in which I can help out with that and benefit from that and support that, it's meaningful work, it's connection, sincere and authentic connection, some healthfulness to your lifestyle. There's some things that go along with being a member of a community that bolster the work of breathwork and take it to a new height. So I'm about creating a physical home for practitioners of all kinds to gather under. The physical home is important. That's what's coming down the pike, is organizing a space where this community and other members of the community can practice often, so people can go, so people can find us, so that community aspect can be there. But there's so much to say about what's happening on the horizon.
Yeah,
that's our whole other.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to revisit this. And you mentioned community, and so I didn't ask the question, but I would think that there is no age limit, or is there a certain group in certain ages that should or would better benefit from what you provide?
Nope. The breath is so deeply meaningful in every stage of life, from the moment that we are born until we die, and possibly beyond that in some way, we don't know yet. But it's the breath is significant in any stage of life.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's a gift that we can only repay by improving on how we utilize it, I think, because it speaks to how important it is even today for all of us to continue to take that breath. So everybody breathe. And we want to say thank you again to Kate Becker for just being who you are and for sharing so much valuable information.
Thank you so much.
And of course, if you've enjoyed this meaningful conversation, we definitely want you to like and comment and subscribe and share and come back again for another opportunity, so that we can again have another great conversation, and stay focused. Until next time, I'm Singinlisa.